get going, and it'll mostly pick up as long as you talk decently loud. I'll have a little spiel here and we'll get going.
Okay.
These guys get a little loud. Tell me when I'm live here, Coach Hoyt. I feel like I was. They're going to be extra loud tonight, I can tell.
They are. Just hoping. Keep it up.
All right, guys, we're back. It's Thursday night, 8 o'clock. We're here at the Craft Emporium, top of Ohio Radon, in the garage. We certainly want to thank Paul Newland, top of Ohio Radon. Paul's our primary sponsor. Encourage everyone to give him a call, 937-935-2806. Paul, come out, check your radon levels. He'll let you know he's honest and professional. He'll let you know if you have an issue. If so, he'll take care of it. If you don't, then you have the peace of mind to know that your radon levels are good. Radon's the second leading cause of lung cancer. You need to make sure you don't have radon in your home. We are sitting here. We're honored to sit with Coach Dan McGill, recently retired. It's kind of hard to say retired when you're 49, 50?
Yeah, getting ready to be 49.
Getting ready to be 49 and you're retired from coaching. So obviously you got a little bit to talk about. Coach Dan McGill has been at West Liberty-Salem for a long time, all of his life for the most part, other than college and a year stint at Bell Fountain. But was the head coach for the last 12 seasons, had an extremely successful run, which anybody that would be listening to this would already be aware of that. Coach McGill, I do want to, I don't know how comfortable you are, but I want to go back to way before you were the head coach. I want to talk maybe a little bit like when you were younger. You are 5 years older than me, graduated in 94.
Correct.
There's a few things I'm curious about. So I want to start with Pee Wee football. I feel like Pee Wee football started at West Liberty when you were a kid. Is that correct?
It did. Actually, it was my parents that I think my dad, he'd probably watched Andy and I play a couple years of youth soccer and thought, man, I got to do something, help these guys out because soccer's not their thing. So, Mom and Dad went and took out a personal loan to finance the equipment and just started the program and he stuck with it through Andy. I think Andy was third grade, so it'd been 4 years, and then he stepped away and passed it on to the next group.
When I brought this up, I didn't know that. Now, I'm a year behind your brother Andy, assistant coach Andy McGill. Andy's a 97 grad, I'm a 98 grad. So I played under your father, Mike McGill. So I knew that part. I didn't know that he took out a personal loan. I didn't realize that he found it. I knew he was probably in that group, but it sounds like he actually found it. So we're talking probably like late 80s, 89, 90?
Let's see, I'd have been in 6th grade, you'd have been in 2nd grade, right?
Yeah, so like 87, 88, somewhere in there.
Yeah,
so is that I don't remember that. Are we one of the few people back then? Like Bell Fountain didn't have Pee Wee football. Who did?
Triad had it, Mechanicsburg had it, Urbana had it. Those are some of the schools I remember playing that first year. Maybe one other school might have had it.
So your older brother Tim didn't play Pee Wee football?
No, he didn't.
Okay, and obviously a lot of people would know that your older brother Tim's a 91 grad.
Yep.
You're a 94 grad. Andy's a 97 grad. All football guys. So you get into the Pee Wee football, obviously. Then I'm sure you played middle school football.
Sure.
And you play at West Liberty-Salem. You play under Jerry Noble. All 4 years would have been Jerry's years.
Yep.
Those are some teams that I look back, and obviously when you look back, you're biased because what you lived through. But I feel like there were some really talented guys on those teams, and we always found a way to be 5-5. Like we'd always play, and I say we because it was we for me back then. We's Bell Fountain for me now, but. Like say Ben Logan would have generally been one of the better teams, and we'd always find a way to lose to Ben Logan super close. I feel like your senior year you lost like super close to Ben Logan, 7-3, something like that.
14-7.
14-7. The next year I think 7-3. Travis Comer senior year. Mm-hmm. So those are some talented West Liberty teams. Though you look back at some of the guys that went on to play college. I mean certainly yourself, your brother, Jared Keeley, guys like. Dan Ruggles, Shane Long, Jim Allen.
John.
Your cousin John McGill is another in a long line of McGills at West Liberty-Salem, still that continues today. So we don't want to go through game by game your high school career, but I am curious. So you go to Campbellsville, and do you go there right away?
No.
Okay.
No. I went to Liberty University.
And your brother had gone to Liberty.
Yeah. So I spent 2 years there.
I tell a story from time to time about your brother played at Liberty, would have been my freshman year. So you may have been there now that I think about it, because you would have been graduated. Yep. Did they go to Toledo your freshman year?
Yep.
So your brother travels.
Sure.
Maybe it gets in a little bit, like special teams or 2 type stuff.
Yep.
And Jack Beard is the head coach at West Liberty, and he takes the West Liberty-Salem team, which would have included Andy, up to see that game. And we're on the sidelines, and it's really cool. It was a really cool experience. I'm glad they did it. And we're watching linebacker drills that involved your brother, and the ball rolled to me, and I had stuff in my right hand, and I picked it up with my left hand, and I threw it back to the linebackers. And immediately when it left my hand, I thought, that is the ugliest, worst throw ever, and everyone in this stadium knows how much I suck.
Well, we tried to disown you right then. Like, he doesn't go to our school.
It has haunted me to this day. But so, okay, I didn't realize you had gone to Liberty too.
Yeah.
And how long did you stay there?
2 years.
And then how does Campbellsville, where do they come in the picture?
So, after my second year at Liberty, I was kind of looking for a different fit. I wanted a place where, I thought I could play a lot sooner than what I would have if I'd have stuck around at Liberty.
You were a walk-on at Liberty.
Yep. And, also just kind of looking at, well, what are my other options? And, I go in and I sit down with our coach at the time, which was Sam Ritigliano.
Yeah, a legend.
Yeah, and I just said, hey, I appreciate the opportunity. I think it's probably, I said, bottom line is I don't want to watch football. I want to play football. So if you could, kind of help me out a little bit. And so he reached out to a few schools, and John, my cousin John, had been at Campbellsville for 1 year. He spent a year at Wright State, and then he decided he missed football too much and found Campbellsville, and he was talking to me, and so he said, I like it, and it's a great place. And so, Coach Ritigliano reached out to Campbellsville's head coach, a guy named Ron Finley.
Long-time coach there, right?
Yep. I guess the rest is history, and that's where I ended up.
And I apologize, I'm kind of speeding through Liberty because I wasn't in my mind. I didn't realize you had played there as well. I mean, that's incredible. Like, Sam Ritigliano, that's a lot of people probably don't know who that is, but Cleveland Browns coach. I mean, that's a real deal. Now, in those days, because I kind of don't remember. Sure. Liberty is like FCS in those days.
Yeah.
1AA, they've been called.
AA.
So what kind of schools are you playing?
Well, at that time, there was a lot of schools in that same boat. So, there was a Boise State, Central Florida.
Well, you were going across the country for these
App
games.
State, those kinds of
Youngstown
schools.
State?
Youngstown State, yeah. But a lot of those schools, kind of like Liberty has over the last 20 years, has made the jump to 1A. But then there's other schools, the Citadel, Wofford, Charleston Southern, those types of schools.
And so you get to Campbellsville, and obviously, okay, so John is the connection. He beat you there. And where is that in Kentucky?
It's about an hour or so west of Lexington.
Okay, that's a really pretty area. I love Lexington. That's a cool place.
Yep.
And so you go down there. You were obviously a really good player. I don't know if everyone realized that's one of the neat things about my little venture with Garage Sports is now you're listed at 161 tackles 1 year. That's a lot of tackles. And first team All Mid-South in 1997. I don't know if you're aware of that, but the internet has not forgotten that. So you had some solid teams while you were there, right?
Yeah, I mean, we did. We had, winning teams every year. That 97 team, we were the conference champs. First time in the NAIA playoffs that year. So,
how many years did you overlap with your brother Andy?
2. So
were you on the field? I mean, I know you were a linebacker and he was O-line.
Yep.
So were you playing at the same time? That second year?
Because I think his second year, my last year, he was starting on the offensive line, and I was starting as a linebacker.
And was John getting on the field too?
Yep.
I mean, that's incredible. That's what a coup for them that they're grabbing 3 dudes from Champaign County, Ohio, to be on a good football squad. So you get out, and again, I don't know, I did see it on that Peak of Ohio article, so maybe people know. You came to Bell Fountain. I am curious about that. Did you teach at Bell Fountain for a year?
I didn't. So my first teaching job, I was employed as a teacher at Macacheek.
Myself, I did the same.
Yep. And so, I didn't have a special ed certification, so you kind of got to work on that out because I'm social studies certified, and I was kind of looking for, a place to plug in and coach. And my wife's aunt lived in on the same street there as Greg Heitzmeyer and
Greenridge, I believe. Greenridge Drive.
On one of those up in there, and so. Anyway, long story short, we had a conversation. I joined that staff, and
it was a good year to join.
Yeah, it was a good year to join.
That 99 team is undefeated? No, that's 97.
No,
the 99 team wins some playoff games.
Yeah, it was the first team that I think went to the regional finals.
Terrell Johnson. Yeah, that's a talented squad.
It was very talented, yeah.
So you stay for a year, and then do you get a job at West Liberty-Salem the next year?
Yeah.
And that was that always kind of in the back of your mind what you wanted to do?
Well, I wasn't anticipating. But when the opportunity came up, I absolutely thought it'd be a perfect fit.
So then you coach for Toby Smith as the head coach, and he's in his first or second year?
That was going to be his second year. Was my first year over there. So his first year was 99, and then I came over in 2000.
And so you come into a program that is quickly about to get a lot better from the 5-5 90s to he dropped off that first year. He was like 2-8, and then quickly you got a crew that's going to make you better. And within a few years, playoffs, and then that just becomes the norm. What was your role early on in those days? What were you coaching?
I coached linebackers and offensive line.
You never called anything O or D in those days?
No. So I would just be on the headset with Toby. On defense. We'd work on the defensive game plan together on Saturdays.
Did you ever coach anything else at West Liberty? Other sports?
Junior high track.
Yeah, that's a good stipend.
Yeah.
There's a lot of guys that have made that's a nice little 7-week season. So you coach for 8 years, I think is what I read. And what interests me as a guy that's in that mode myself, you decide to step away to go coach Pee Wee football?
Yeah, it was kind of a unique situation. We were living in West Liberty, and none of my kids were school aged yet, and so that next year would have been my oldest son's first year in kindergarten. But we moved out of West Liberty School District and moved into Ben Logan School District, where my wife grew up. That's where we live now. And so, with her returning to work a few days a week and having a kid there and not having any busing, it was kind of like, man, I don't know how we're gonna make that work.
Yeah.
We had we had 2 other little ones at home and trying to figure out that, and I just kind of thought, well, this is probably the right time for me to take a break. And I really didn't intend on coaching at the youth level, but it was one of those things where they're kind of scrambling for people, and hey,
either watch other people do it or you can do it.
So can you coach a flag team? I said, well, sure, I can do that. My son's gonna play, and then the guy that was in charge of that, Matt Woodruff, he gets, he's in the Army Reserves, and he gets called into duty.
To Iraq, probably.
Yeah, probably. Yeah. And he hands me the binder and says, "You're in charge." So that's kind of how that started. And then, I just decided, well, while I'm taking this break from the high school level, I'll just kind of run the youth program
now
for a while.
You're doing this at a younger age than I'm doing it, because I'm 44, and I would assume you were in your mid to early 30s.
Sure.
I'm just curious personally, as you look back on those days, because that's where I'm at. I've stopped coaching high school. I'm ironically running a flag league here locally. How do you look back on those days, that you stepped away and you had all that time? Obviously,
football's fun. It was fun. Coaching at a youth level shouldn't be any pressure, and it wasn't. One of the things that I noticed, it made me a better communicator. Because you're talking to people that have no idea what a line of scrimmage is, and so you really got to break things down, and at the same time, my goal at that time was to teach those kids fundamental and to make sure they had fun. I would tell my assistants, I say, listen, there is no Pee Wee Football Coaches Hall of Fame, nor should there ever be.
Yeah.
It's not about us. It's about these kids. We don't know who's gonna blossom in the future, and who's still might be shaving right now as a fourth grader, and they look
Right.
like they're going to be an NFL player. But so our goal was to play all the kids. In fact, one of my assistant coaches, his job was he held the clipboard and he had the roster in front of him, and I said, your job is to chart every kid's snaps, and we're going to evaluate.
You got to start it early.
Yeah.
If you wait till the end of the game,
it's too late.
It's tough to do.
And there's some kids that are challenging to get in because either they have no idea what they're doing,
They may not want to get in.
or maybe they're scared still,
Yeah.
and so you have to substitute intelligently. So there'd be some times when I'd turn to him and I'd say, hey, this would be a good play to get so and so in, and let's put them on the left side.
Yeah, left split in.
Yeah.
We're running sweep right.
Yeah, and so but the kid didn't know that.
Yeah.
He's getting in the game. He's happy. His grandma and grandpa are happy, and so it's just about giving kids a good experience at that level and teaching them fundamentals, and don't overthink it. I mean, we had 6 plays. That was it. 2 formations, 6 plays, and we just did the basics, and that was it. And you know what? The basics were good enough. We had good teams, and that was fine. And you know what? Even in those games where, this is for a league title, I'm like, I don't care. We're going to play everybody. We're going to, if we win, we win. If we don't, we're going to rest well tonight, guys. Let's be all right.
And the time around your son is invaluable. I mean, for me, that was like, you just know you're never going to be able to go back. Like, we got one shot at this. And not that coaching high school football is coaching, it's not Ryan Day, but you're busy. And it's one thing to coach your son's team on a Saturday morning. It's another to swing in because you left film and you showed up for an hour and you're leaving right away. That's at least how I looked at it. And so you stay in that realm. Which the other thing, I just say this from the Bell Fountain perspective, and I always bring up Art Caudill, who coaches with us. Art did the same thing. He left when his sons kind of got that age, and he went down and he came back up through with them. And we all know that getting good coaches is hard, especially at the lower levels where, a lot of guys want to coach high school because it's, glory. And he went down and just, did the work with that crew. And, we really benefited from it years later. His sons were good, and then their teammates were better for it, and they had nice group that he approached it the right way, like you, that kids didn't quit, you didn't lose people because it was a positive experience. But so that lasts for a while, and then in 2013 you realized that Toby Smith is taking the Bell Fountain job. I believe it's 2013, be the winner of 13.
No.
What was the thought process there? Were you ready to get back in?
I was not actively looking because it just worked out well, because that was also that next year was going to be my youngest son's first year in school. So that meant now that all the kids can ride with me, and all the kids, in the morning, and then my wife would just pick them all up after school. She didn't have to have one at home napping and try to figure all that stuff out. And so it just kind of worked out well for the family. And then, when Toby said he was leaving, he came to me, we had a conversation, and, he said, hey, what do you think about, taking this program over? I'd like to see it, continue to be stable and successful and whatnot. And so I just went home, talked with my wife. We spent some time thinking about it, praying about it. I talked to John, because John was on staff at that time, and we kind of looked at each other and we were kind of like, okay, should you be the head coach and I be your assist, a coordinator, or vice versa? And so we kind of hem-hawed around about that a little bit, and I decided, well, I'll take the job if I can get it.
Where's Andy at this time?
He wasn't in the building. I don't know.
Riverside, maybe?
He spent some time he was at Ben Logan and Urbana and Riverside. He's a vagabond. He just
Not anymore, but back then, yeah.
People get tired of him, just send him on his way.
Right.
But anyway, so retaining John was a huge thing. I honestly, I told him, and we said to each other, all right, listen, if we're going to do this, you're not allowed to quit before I'm done. I'm not allowed to quit before you're done. We're going to finish this. and that's kind of the way it is. And he's been really an associate head coach in so many respects, done so many of the things to try to take them off my plate. And it's just been a huge asset for these 12 years.
Maybe people that haven't been in that kind of environment don't realize the amount of trust that is involved, because there's always so much distraction and drama in a high school football program that can lead to, there's just moments where if you're not all on the same page and you're not all rowing the same way, that things can happen. And having your cousin, and you're close cousins, and you're not like distant cousins. These are your first cousins that have grown up, your family's tight. That he's always going to do things exactly how you want him to do it. He's going to say the right things. When there's a bad loss and everyone's pointing fingers, he's not pointing them at you and whispering, and that's not, that happens on staffs.
No, I mean, he's as loyal as they come, and yet at the same time, I let John run the defense, but John would also say, hey, this is what I want to do. What do you think? We would work on it. If there's stuff I felt like needed tweaked, we would tweak that. And so he was great about, he didn't have thin skin, if I wanted to change an idea or something he had, he's a guy that says, all right, man, you're the boss, and your name's at the top of the program there, so I'll do what you want.
Who else is coaching in those early days? Coach Freeze?
Yeah, Mike Freeze, and I talked to Mike when I took the job. I asked him to, because he was going to step back.
Yeah.
He was going to be done, and I kind of talked him into sticking it out. And he spent 2 more years with me, and that was invaluable to me because he was a guy who's been a head coach, at the varsity level. He's
at every level.
Yeah, I mean, he has so much experience that I needed to draw on, because there'd be times when you're dealing with whatever situation that even though I was an assistant for years, you don't have to deal with. The head coach has to deal with this parent that's a problem, or this administration situation. They aren't going down and asking the JVD coordinator, hey, what do you want to do here?
Right.
And Mike would be the first guy I would go to and say, all right, hey, this is what's happening. What do you think? And he did a fantastic job of giving me perspective. Like, well, this is one, if you go this direction, this is probably what's going to happen. If you go this direction, this is probably what's going to happen. And then he would do a great job of saying, and whatever you choose to do, I'll support you. He just, I learned a ton from him in that regard.
Coach Freeze is a really special person to me. I grew up with Johnny and Josh as boys. Johnny's a couple years older, Josh a year younger. And Coach Freeze was my middle school football coach, like a lot of us. He coached a lot of different things. I always appreciated the humility he had, and I've really tried to pattern myself after him, that he'll just go coach anything, what's needed, and I'll be there, whatever level, I don't care. There's not a lot of men that I like. I guess there's a little bit of I idolize him a little bit, because he was such a big part of my childhood, and he would pick me up and take me to practice, and when I didn't have a ride. Side story, we beat London when I was coaching my last year 2 years ago. I'm calling the plays late in the season, or at least co-calling the plays, and we beat London after losing to them 36 whatever to 6, and it is, it's probably the highest professional football or moment of my career. And I walk off and I see my wife and kids, and that's certainly, that's emotional. And I see Coach Freeze, and I'm like totally blindsided that I see Coach Freeze there. And it made me super emotional. I hugged him. I was so I'm pretty far removed from West Liberty, but then all of a sudden here's this guy that I knew when I was little, and he's there. And I'm like, that's so awesome. I told my wife, I'm so glad Coach Freeze was here tonight. What a great dude, and the kind of dude that every football program, every community needs. And I was glad to see, I think they put him in the Hall of Fame, it sounded like, recently. That's certainly well-deserving. And on paper, he may not have a win-loss record, whatever statistics, but anybody that grew up in the 80s and 90s and the last 20 years of the 2000s knows, what he meant. But so pretty much you're successful right away. I mean, you take over, and in fairness, certainly credit to Coach Smith that you took over a program that was humming pretty good.
Yeah.
You didn't have to dig in and change a ton of things. I mean, certainly you're going to have your own stamp and your own culture, but as far as the foundation was in place, and I feel like that first year you maybe win a ton of games, right?
We did well. I think regular season we were 8-2, but we were able to advance to the regional finals.
Kind of got a nice. It was one of those draws where you avoided.
There was no MAC schools in the region that year, and we ended up playing Mechanicsburg in the regional finals and lost a double overtime game.
Oh yeah, I
in the
remember
week before, my starting quarterback broke his ankle.
Oh my!
In the regional semis.
What was his name?
Brandon Upton.
Okay, so Upton goes down, and then who's the starter in the regional final?
I took receiver Landon Williams.
Okay, good player, good athlete. Yeah.
And I said, all right, man, you're going to be my Wildcat quarterback.
I didn't realize that part. Holy cow.
And we had to totally reinvent ourselves in a week because Landon, great athlete, not exactly a pocket passer.
Yeah, he's not a quarterback.
No, he's not a quarterback.
Now, how had you done against Berg in the regular season?
We did all right. I think it was maybe a 3-point game going in the fourth quarter, and they scored. So I think we lost by 10.
It's really impressive that you go to double overtime with a non-quarterback at quarterback.
I felt like we played really well. But your first year, you always make mistakes. I look back on that year and I think, doggone it, I should have called a timeout at this moment and set the defense better, but that's, you live and learn.
And then Berg goes on and plays like a wing trace or something. I feel like in the semifinals.
Yeah, and they lost to them.
And I did want to talk about, so, uniquely, I think West Liberty-Salem has the MAC, kind of monkey on their back. Sure. And it is to me, there's not, you could go all across the country and you're not going to find a better small school football conference than MAC. I think that's a fact at this point. You are in the unique situation that you constantly have the devil at the door. I mean, he's almost always there. Every now and then, you have a year where he's not.
But, now that the playoffs are expanded, you're really never going to avoid it.
Because now they're 5-5 and they're getting in.
Yeah, or worse.
Yeah.
And they're still good.
Yeah.
4-6 MAC team's really, really good. And so that's going to be a challenge that is always going to be there. And, we are just far enough west that we'll never get slid down into the southeast, Fairbanks and Mechanicsburg got shifted to southeast.
Yeah.
That's kind of a nice thing. West Jeff, same situation. They're a little more east anyway, but it's got to be the right year where the Coldwater, Marion Local, Minster, St. Henry split happens, Anna split happens. Where you can hopefully avoid at least.
Or you catch a year like this year, and Versailles, plays Indian Lake, and I think most of us just assume that, okay, that's a foregone conclusion. But it's not a great MAC team, but we've all been there where it's like, well, yeah, it's not a great MAC team, but they're going to beat everybody else. Yeah. And, credit to Indian Lake that they find a way and, kind of almost ipso facto, you beat a MAC team in the fact that you knocked out the team that knocked out a MAC team. So certainly it'd be reasonable to think you would have beaten Versailles had you played them. Everyone always asks me, they'll say like, well, what is it about the MAC? And I don't have an answer other than their community. I mean, that's the best answer to me. Now, I do think there's, genetically they're pretty superior too. It's not, I don't know what it is, but Champaign and Logan County just seem to have shorter people, and you go over there and it's not that uncommon. Just 6'4", 6'5", they're all over.
No, I mean we played Marion Local. Let's see, we played Minster 2014, got knocked out in the regional finals. Marion Local the next year in the regional semis. The next year, Marion Local in the first round. I mean, so we've had these experiences with these schools, and the reality is when you step on the field, you don't see it so much in film. Everybody kind of looks the same on film. You step on the field and you're like, man, those guys look like men. And you're looking at your best players, and usually after the fact I start thinking, okay, how many of my guys would have started on that team? And there hadn't been a whole lot over the years that you'd look at and say, this kid or this kid. I mean, maybe one or two here and there, but
Did it ever frustrate you? I would say, and I don't want to speak for him, but I think if Coach Smith was sitting here, he would say part of his coming to Bell Fountain, he got frustrated with it, I would say. And I hate to speak for him, but it kind of makes you feel sometimes like,
Well, I mean, it is what it is. I mean, I don't get frustrated getting beat by Mac School, because usually, and every time we've gotten beat by one, they've been the better team.
Right.
And so there's no, I mean, sometimes I'm like, man, it stinks that you can't avoid them a little bit better, but it is what it is.
you like wish they were in the state finals so you could get that experience. But you know, you did have a few years there. You talked to the first year, ironically. I'm sure Coach Smith noticed that when he leaves, he's been beating his head against the wall, and then it clears out. And it did happen from time to time. I would be curious. So in the playoffs, so you made it 9 times. That sound right?
Yeah.
How many times did you think you lost to a MAC? Like your elimination game? 6 or 7?
4.
Oh, just 4. Well, that's not as bad.
Let's see, Marion Local, Marion Local 3 times, Minster once. Yeah.
And then Toby would have lost to him a handful of times. He lost to St. Henry. He lost to Coldwater. He lost to Versailles. So, OHC though, not a slouch. I mean, I think a lot of people say that the OHC, if it wasn't for the MAC, would be looked at differently. Like, it is a really good conference. It's I really think the West Jeff edition, that was not how many years that been, maybe 10 or 15.
2017, I think, was their first year.
Oh, not even that long. That's and I think they were down. Were they down a little bit this year?
They were. They had their first maybe poor season.
Yeah, that surprised me too, just because I knew the coach's son was the quarterback, and I knew he was really talented, and it's just a team you don't expect to be down. But that league has really solidified in my mind. And you think back to when we were in school, the WCOC, and we all, at least I look back fondly on it. It certainly wasn't a great football conference.
No.
It was what it was, and I put their stuff on my site all the time, and I love it, but didn't win a lot of playoff games. A lot harder to get in back then. But the OHC's been good to West Liberty-Salem. I don't know if you're aware, and there are some rumblings again. I feel like this happens every 5 to 10 league rumblings again, and I shake my head because sometimes I feel like no one wants to leave things alone just for a little while. And there's talk that Greenon and Bethel are coming to the CBC. I don't know if that's true. I don't understand that. And I just don't know what benefit that is. If I'm Greenon, I'm looking at the OHC and saying, this is fine. I mean, they're not super successful, but they're probably not going to find any more success wherever they go. I like a league that has, that's the nice thing about the MAC and the WBL, who Bell Fountain plays a little more. They have that, they kind of stay together, and they kind of all have a similar vision for what they want to be. And that's, to me, is what makes a league successful. This, every time we get good or get bad, we want to jump around. I think that's kind of anti what we're trying to be in high school sports.
Yeah, I always just think, the grass isn't always greener on the other side. I think sometimes the gates or the lack of gates kind of helps steer the ship a little bit. And that is what it is as far as finance goes. I think when people talk about blowing up leagues and scratching together new ones, you're just a dog chasing his tail, and honestly, the only thing sadder than a dog chasing his tail is sometimes you catch it.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden you're gnawing on it and you realize, man, what did we do that for?
I would think from the West Liberty-Salem perspective, you would be pretty happy. Just like if I'm working there and I'm the AD, I'm saying we don't need any change. We found a nice thing for us.
And if Greenon leaves, it doesn't blow up the conference.
No, agreed.
It might take a tweak here or there.
Sometimes
to figure
it
out.
does, though. It's a weird thing, and they don't seem like the school that would.
But that's what I'm saying. Like, that too often is a knee-jerk reaction.
Yes.
Oh, so-and-so's leaving. We got to do this. I mean, honestly, the only reason the OSC expanded back in 2017, 18 was Northeastern's leaving. They're going to combine with KR. Blah blah. All that rumor. And so it became, now we got to bring other people in. And so Fairbanks and West Jeff and Madison Plains and Greenon, and you bring these other schools in, and then you're splitting into two halves, which is kind of like two leagues.
I hate the two
And
halves.
then, I do too. And then if one school leaves, well, then you're still in the same situation.
Yeah.
You're rocking the boat unnecessarily, I think.
We're in an era of the big leagues. I hate the big leagues.
I do too.
You know, the GWalk did it and then fell apart. The OCC's the one there in Columbus. You know, we deal with it at the CBC that there's always, and like you said, two different leagues. The Mad River will complain about the Kenton Trail, and I get it. Like, hey, if you're getting your teeth kicked in, you don't want to keep doing it. But it does beg the question of what are you in the league for? You know, like if you don't want to do the crossovers, then do you really want to be in a league together? And if you only want to play someone in the sports you can beat them in, well, that's not really, that's kind of against what we are as a league. You know, if I was in charge, geography, number one, I don't like driving very far. I've always told our head coaches when I've been involved in conversations, look, we don't need to go any further than we need to. Like, you know, we once got our teeth kicked in a scrimmage, like when Schmitty was the head coach. It was Clear Fork. It was like an hour and 45 minutes away. We got totally destroyed. And I said, Schmitty, we passed like 20 schools that could have killed us on the way. Yeah, we didn't need to do this. Like, you know, I don't know. I'm big on like stay close and those natural local rivalries I love. I think it's good for sports. But back to West Liberty, I did want to ask you about coaching your sons in high school. So you have two boys, correct?
Yep.
And your oldest boy graduated 2 years ago?
He graduated in 2020.
Okay, so it's been a while, 4 years ago, 5 years ago. And his name is Eli.
Yep.
And then your youngest son, Luke,
Yeah.
was a senior on this year's team. So they didn't play together then? 8th grade senior. And then you have a daughter as well?
Yeah. Naomi was in the middle.
Okay. And I just, you know, I've watched head coaches coach their sons. I mean, it's always, you know, that's kind of a common thing in high
Sure.
school football. How did that feel? Like, was it stressful? Was it just all?
You know, no, it wasn't. In one sense, it was nice because I always knew I had it. I knew I could count on somebody you're going to lead the right way. You're going to lead the workouts. You're going to be there. You're going to, you know, there's a sense of, I have raised you to do certain things. And so now that you're there, I don't have to worry about what you're going to do. You're going to do the right thing because I got all these other knuckleheads to deal with.
They're an extension of you.
Yeah, in that sense. And you know, sometimes I'm sure it's more challenging at times given what your kids might do. You know, Eli was a defensive end and an offensive tackle. Luke was a center and a D tackle. So my focus, you know, if they were quarterbacks, it might have felt different. You know,
The pressure's different, maybe.
yeah, I don't know. You know, this is going to sound a lot worse than I want it to. I never noticed my kids when they were playing. I just coached. And then sometimes, I told my wife, sometimes I felt bad after a game. One of my sons would come up to me like, hey, we won, Dad. And I'm like, oh, that's right. You're my kid and we won. You know what I mean?
Yeah, did you see the play I made?
Yeah. And
I'll check the film.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just so locked into my job
Yeah.
that I'm not worried about this and that. I told him, I said, listen, you're gonna play if you deserve to play, and if you don't, then you're not.
And it helps that your boys are good players.
Yeah,
I mean, it does help. If somehow they weren't, that could add a stress. That
Sure. But I can remember, my oldest boy. He was a young player in high school. He was on the JV team. And he, at the JV level, at least this is what we do. We a lot of times set rotations. Like, hey, you're gonna, you defensive ends, you guys rotate every series. We try to get guys in, get guys experience. And they, but at the same time, I tell my JV coaches, hey, gets down to the wire, end of the game. Play your best guys and play to win. And it was Eli's time to be in defensive end, and games coming down the wire, and he had an older player on the JV team that also played defensive end, and I just happened to be out there, and I subbed this other kid in. And he came up to me and said, "What are you doing? What are you doing?" This is my series. I go, "Yeah, I know, but he's better than you, and we're trying to win this game."
Yeah.
And I think he understood. He didn't like it. I didn't expect him to like it. I don't want any player to like being taken out. But I also wanted to let my assistant coaches, my JV coaches, we're competing here. We want to play guys at the JV level for sure. And we try to get all our guys in and get meaningful reps. At the same time, we're trying to win. And so that pendulum of participation at the young grades to you're doing everything you can at the varsity level to win every single game. And if a great kid never gets on the field, that's part of it.
What about the turning it off at home? Like, was that ever like stressful? Like, you just needed to quit talking about football and you're watching film. I assume you're a guy that will watch film on a Sunday, and like, you ever like bursting the door open? Like, this is what I'm talking about.
I didn't do any coaching at home really. If they wanted to talk about stuff, like, hey, what do you think about this week's opponent? What do they wanted to kind of just pick my brain, stuff like that. We'd have conversations, but again, I was probably just so locked into getting my job done that, and I always made it a point, like when we're driving home, when they were younger and they couldn't drive yet, we'd be driving home after practices or after games. I'm not reliving the third down. What were you thinking?
No rehashing.
No, I just kind of, I wanted to be a dad then. And I just want to say, hey man, you played really hard. I'm proud of you. And focus on, honestly, what's more important.
Yeah. Well, and you're obviously a grounded individual. You're high character. That probably makes it easier. You could see the pitfalls that if you weren't those things, that it could be tougher. Back to this year. So I am curious, and maybe you're not comfortable saying this. Did you go into the year knowing that this was probably your last year?
I had not made up my mind, no.
You were thinking about it, maybe kind of play it by ear?
I always said that when Luke was done, that would be the first time I would entertain the question.
Right.
And so, but to be honest, the entire off season leading up to it, the entire season, during the season, even when my wife and I would have conversations during the season, I did not speak in past tense. It was, because I wanted to be committed to A, focusing on the job, but then B, when the season did end, I didn't want to feel like I'd already made up my mind. I wanted to take a couple weeks, really sit back, really talk about things, evaluate where we are as a family, and spend some time talking to other people about it. Coach Freeze was a guy kind of bent his ear a little bit, and spent some time talking to other people, praying about it, and just really felt like this is probably the right time for me. My biggest desire to continue was a feeling of not wanting to let people down, and that kind of let me know there towards the end of that time where I was processing that decision that probably means that I need to step away and take a break if that's my biggest motivation right now.
And I don't want to glaze over how good your season was, but we did have West Liberty superfan Matt Hall on. It's kind of turned into a West Liberty podcast. We had West Liberty superfan Matt Hall
you gotta get a better guest, man.
We had West Liberty wrestling coach Andy Hartshorn last week, and so about 5 people are going to start giving me a lot of grief that why you keep doing this West Liberty podcast. But you guys have had some stuff to talk about. Obviously, the season, get into the playoffs, and it was,
Sure.
something that you hadn't done before. And, obviously you'd had a lot of success, but did you feel like, I am kind of skipping the regular season, did you feel like when you saw your draw, because we all know that, the draw matters, did you feel like, hey, this is a team that can win this region?
Yeah, I knew we had a good team. It took a few weeks as the season progressed to kind of, for me to figure out how to use a couple kids differently. And this kid's really good at this, not so good at this, and so how can I maximize some of their talents? And then I felt like we really kind of hit a stride about halfway through the regular season. Coming down the pike there, we had stayed relatively healthy. We lost one junior early in the season to a knee injury that took his season, but for the most part, I lost Will Coxon early in the season for a few games, and we kind of hit a hiccup there with a hamstring, and then at the end of the season, I lost Luke. He got an eye injury, and so he missed weeks 9, weeks 10 against Fairbanks. That was for the title, and then the first week of the playoffs. And so, whenever you lose a 3-year starting offensive lineman who's
He's your center, right?
yeah, he's my center. That's always a disconcerting thing. But we had a guy, junior, Bryant Eaton, step in, did a nice job, and getting through that Fairbanks game the way we did, I just thought, man, we got some momentum. That was probably the most exciting regular season game I've ever been part of.
We listened to it on the way home. We were covering the Bellefontaine game, and we turned it on, myself and some of the guys that are sitting in here tonight. And, yeah, we were locked in. That was exciting. Came down to the goal line. Took you several downs. You had to get in, right?
Well, they had the ball fourth quarter, and they were I think, I can't remember exactly, up by a little bit. And they had a great field goal kicker anyway. And time was starting to get away from us, and they had called timeout, and they had the ball in our 7 or 8. It was first and goal. And we went out there, and I said, guys, I looked at John, and John said something about maybe we should let him score. And, I just said, I started thinking about the math a little bit at the time, and I knew a field goal was pretty much a foregone conclusion. And so in that timeout huddle, I said to the guys, listen, I'm going to ask you to do something that's really, really hard. I'm going to ask you to let them score. And, some of those guys looked at me like I just stomped their dog to death, and fortunately they did that. We let them score, which goes against every fiber of a competitor, especially high school age.
Yeah.
When the emotions are running hot and this and that. And they kicked off to us and said, okay, we're going to have one shot.
And what are you down at that point?
This is where I need John. John always remembers all these details. But we're down. I can't remember exactly what we're down by. But they kick off, and Jack Bahan runs it all the way back for touchdown.
That's right. Yeah, I remember that.
And they get the ball back, and I think we're maybe down by 1 still. And they drove down. We held them. Got the ball back, drove down, and kicked pretty much a last-second field goal.
Yeah, a longer one too.
Yeah.
The Cole kid, right?
Gideon Cole.
Yeah.
Field goal. So.
Well, we had talked in the summer, and I knew that you liked your team. You kind of came into the year question mark at quarterback. You're breaking in a new guy, and you got a couple guys that were competing, and obviously Shiflett ran with that, and I didn't watch him. Well, I watched him in the playoff game against the Lake, but he had a heck of a season. That's about as good a first year as you could ever ask for. And senior?
Yeah.
So, only year. That's a good one. But the thing that I thought about you from a distance was you just were very deep. You had good linemen, O-line, D-line. You had good skill players. Once you had a good quarterback and you solved that, you had good running backs, you had good receivers. You told me about the Bahan kid, I remember, because he had missed his in junior year. And you had told me, that preseason deal we did, you're like, he belongs on it. He's one of the best players, and you absolutely were right on that. He was maybe, one of the top wide receivers in the area. But, that we talked about that draw. So you start with...
We started with Arcanum. And, they were a big physical team. We did okay. I would give us kind of we're just okay. A little sloppy, maybe it's because you're playing a lower seed, whatever. And their kids competed hard. And we get through it and whatnot. We played Miami East the second round, and Miami East had a couple really good receivers, a couple really nice, humongous tight end. The kid 6'4", 250. He was a monster. Nice quarterback, good team. And we went out there and we played well. And I thought, okay, we're starting to hit a stride here. They made some decent pass plays on us, but we really controlled that game. And then the next week was Waynesville. Now, I think Waynesville was, granted, you don't see everybody in your region, but I think they were probably the most talented team in the region.
It was the game that I assumed, honestly, you would lose because Matt King, I don't know if you know Matt.
Yeah.
Matt is a good friend of mine. He's a Valley View, and he's had some battles with Waynesville, and I have tremendous respect for their league. I was like, you'd had a couple results. You're like, all right, this is probably where West Liberty's run ends, and obviously, no.
Yeah, I mean they were talented. They really were. Fantastic running back, quarterback that's going to go play small college football. Some talented receivers, and they were big up front. They were big physical kids, and there weren't a whole lot of places that I was looking around on the roster saying, well, we're more talented here, we're more talented there. Now, there were several places we were as talented, but there was also several places we weren't. But our guys they played their tails off, and we had an explosive second quarter. I don't know.
Hey, put it on them.
I mean, I think we had a 28-point second quarter. Yeah. And so we're going into halftime, and I'm sorry, I think we had a 35-point second quarter. It was crazy. We're going to halftime with a couple touchdown lead, and you're excited, but you're also knowing, okay, what are these guys going to do? And the credit to their staff, they realized at some point that we couldn't stop their running game. And even though they were behind, they were content. Let's hand it off. And they really started to catch back up. And, we only scored 3 points in the second half.
Kind of got interesting late, right?
It did. I mean, it was, I think, a 45-42 game.
Oh, wow.
And so, it was right down to the wire, thrilling finish. And it was kind of like we had to hold on for dear life, and we got the final bid.
And then you get to the next week, and we covered this game at length on this podcast, but the Indian Lake game, it was a thrill for me. Just, I don't know why, I guess doing this, whatever it is I'm doing, kind of started rooting harder for the teams that are kind of involved. I'm like, talking to, I don't know how well you know John Rapp at the Lake. I like John. I respect him a lot.
He was my student teacher.
Okay.
And then we 7-on-7 every summer. So
all right. So, and he and I talked, and maybe you and I did too, that, I've said from the outside, why are you guys not playing each other? And we said this in the summer, to me, West Liberty and the Lake should be a good out-of-conference game. And I know he kind of feels the same way. And then ironically, you guys face each other in the playoffs. And, their run's probably more improbable than yours. Not that yours is particularly improbable because you've done it a bunch of times. They didn't look great in the regular season. They had some really close games against some teams that were not very good. They got really boat raced by Bell Fountain, and it was a good Bell Fountain team, but it's a Bell Fountain team that lost in the first round of the playoffs. So I don't think anyone went in and thought, first of all, Versailles. So I just think the common fan, myself included, said, well, yeah, Versailles will beat Indian Lake. And credit to them, credit to every. But I did feel like during the season they were similar to you, that they had some, maybe not quite as strong up front, but they had some good dudes. And they had some, for you had Bayham, they have Quest Clay and Reisinger. You got Wilcox, and they got Drake Cosby. Now their quarterback ended up playing better down the stretch. He kind of struggled early in the season, but by the end he was playing too. And I'm sure John's got a freshman son, Aaron, who is he's already pretty good, and he's going to be a handful in years to come. So that matchup, talk a little bit about just how that was facing a local team.
And I give them a ton of credit. Similar to you, I thought that maybe they would be, I don't want to sound like a naysayer, but I thought they'd get beat by Versailles. I'd seen Preble Shawnee on film, and I would thought, they're probably going to maybe get beat by them. And it wasn't that I'd seen a lot of Indian Lake on film or anything, just looking at scores from the regular season. And then when they played Greenview, I knew Greenview had just beat a Lima Bath team that I know Lima Bath I think was 5-5, but they play in that real league.
Yeah.
And I talked to Coach Haynes after the fact, and he said that Lima Bath team was the most talented team that he has ever beaten since he's been there. And I think, Greenview in some ways, maybe this is my outsider perspective, some ways kind of felt like, man, we just slew the giant. Now we can get rolling here, because they'd beaten us. We were left. Indian Lake was left. Waynesville, they'd beaten them.
Yeah, on paper, it's them.
And so credit to Indian Lake. And one of the things I noticed when I watched all of Indian Lake's playoff films, the amount of turnovers that they got and created. They weren't all just these gifts. They created a lot of turnovers and played really opportunistic and complimentary football. They did a great job. When we were heading into that regional final game, I thought the matchup was fine. I thought it was two fairly similar teams. I thought there were a few things that maybe we would have had an advantage of. I think those advantages might have shown up a little bit better on
good weather.
On a good weather, but that's the nature of playoff football. November. Yeah. It is what it is, and so you got to be willing to win in an ugly, rainy, nasty game, and
the game was ugly at times.
Yeah, it was.
We bought it and watched it in our garage, and it was like, this is not the most fun game to watch.
No, we struggled to throw the ball in that wind, in that rain, and so it made us a lot more one-dimensional than we were used to and comfortable with. And so it is what it is at times, though.
But great, what a great win,
Sure.
and so. To be able to go out on your last year and experience that, because any of us that have ever coached at the high school level, like, there's always that little bit like, man, how great would that be? And I coached in a regional final, never won one. That's just the kind of night where you walk off the field and you're like, I assume you're walking on air, like, and the experience you get to have with the kids, because you just did something that they're gonna be 70 years old talking about this. It's something tangible, that they can hold on to. You go the next week and play Ironton, which, in itself is what an incredible experience. Like, this team, and I was unaware. I knew they were good, and then that weekend, I think I made a few people mad because I posted some stuff about Ironton, and they were like, "Oh," I was saying something. I'm just like, I don't know if you people realize this. This team is real, and I didn't realize it until I looked it up. And then even some of my buddies, Brian Lorette was sending stuff 5 Division I offers, and one dude's going to Penn State, one dude's going to Missouri. The backup quarterback's been offered. There's a freshman tight end on the bench that's been offered. You're like, holy cow! The head coach played at Michigan State. It's crazy to me because I don't know much about that area, Southern Ohio. Obviously, they must kind of be a vacuum for the area.
Yeah, they are. I'd spoken with a coach from their league prior to the game, and he said, they just go out and get guys from other schools. They got guys from Kentucky. They got guys from West Virginia, because they're right nestled down there on the border, and
there's no one else, I guess.
The other schools, aren't able to compete with the brand of Ironton, and so there's this narrative down there that, hey, if you want to get noticed, if you want to get a scholarship, then come here. And you see that everywhere, where parents think if they move their kid from this spot to this spot, suddenly offers are going to start rolling in, and for them in that case, they got guys everywhere. The kid that is going to Penn State, he didn't even play offense.
Yeah.
How do you have a cornerback, a skilled athlete, that's going to Penn State, then he had to play offense? Yeah. That guy would have touched the ball every single time if he was on my team.
Right.
it was just different.
But an incredible experience. And I don't know, and Hall and I argued about this, and he disagreed with me. I said, and I don't even expect you to answer, but if I know I'm losing as a coach, and maybe this is a loser attitude, I don't know, but if I'm going out and I know that that's foregone, I would rather lose to a team like that where I can be like, what are we going to do? Than lose in double overtime. And I've lost in those, when we lost to Watterson in the regional final, and that's a really good Watterson team, but we're winning with 8 minutes to go. And I'll spend the rest of my life saying, had I done something different, we would have won the game. And it will haunt me forever. There's nothing I can do to shake that. I feel like there's some comfort in like, holy cow, like we just ran into a machine.
Sure. I mean, like I said earlier, we've been knocked out of the playoffs by Marion Local 3 times, and when you walk off the field, it's not like you say, well, if we would have just done this one thing different, and so those close games always haunt you a little bit more.
You wish you'd have played Ironton the next week. That would have been.
Yeah,
But there was some pretty
or not at all.
Right, or not at all. That's true. Yeah, and there's kind of you get a better region, but then you get every bit. That team, the question was how good is Ironton, and I would guess, and that Drew Pasteur, which I don't know if you look at him, I'm a huge fan because he puts numbers to opinions. They're probably in the top 5 to 10 teams in the state, regardless of division. Like they would be right there at all divisions. Maybe D1 they would struggle a little bit, but even then, I bet they'd play with them.
Yeah, they're explosive. I mean, let's be honest. How many Division II schools last year had 5 or 6 Division I caliber players on there?
I mean,
that guy's been
few,
off. Yeah, I mean, so
any.
and so you're looking at that. I mean, there's not going to be a talent gap.
Right.
Now, you might outcoach him. I mean, and this is not a knock on Ironton's coaching staff, but the reality is when you play schools week in, week out that you are just flat out better than, you don't have to be super sharp.
Right.
You don't have to make a ton of in-game adjustments. And so, there's certainly staffs out there that would have, a little bit more experience, a little bit more wisdom in-game adjustments, stuff like that. But I mean, we can say whatever he wants, man. He won the state title this year, so
Yeah, no doubt.
credit to him.
So, obviously now you've had a little bit of time here, a few months, and I guess it does beg the question of what's next. Obviously, you're going to go to work tomorrow and teach history. What else outside of that is in store?
I don't know yet. I'm not gonna race to find the next thing. I kind of just want to take a little bit of time, even maybe take this summer to really evaluate. All right, what's my next enterprise I want to get involved in? I'll certainly do things outside of teaching, but what that looks like right now, I'm not 100% sure.
Well, I appreciate you. I think that obviously you've gotten a lot of outpouring of goodwill. I'm sure that you've appreciated that. The comment section and Facebook, people were really very happy and pleased, especially coming from West Liberty, and your family and has been ingrained in West Liberty now your dad wasn't from West Liberty, I don't believe, was he?
No.
Like a little west, I want to say?
No, he graduated from Xenia. I mean, my
Okay.
grandparents had kind of went from Xenia to kind of just outside of, St. Paris to Urbana. And so a couple of my uncles, one uncle was Graham graduate, 2 uncles from Urbana, so they kind of just started moving north that
But
way.
now at this point, I mean, it's West Liberty, the McGills are pretty,
Yeah, for better or worse, man.
yeah, certainly better. I do appreciate you. I know you weren't dying to come down up to Bell Fountain on a snowy Thursday and talk about yourself, but I think it's worthwhile, and I think that you've a 13-year run, 12-year run. It's a lot of years. It doesn't sound like it, but coaching football, it's a lot of years and it's a lot of hours, and I know there's a little bit of probably your shoulders drop like, all right, I don't have to slay any dragons this off season.
I mean, it's amazing how your mind slows down when you step away, because now I'm not worried about who's showing up for lifting.
Yeah.
Who's on the absence list.
Yeah.
Going and talking to this teacher about this kid's grades.
Right.
So some of that is nice to have a break from. But there are a lot of good years. I'm very, very thankful. Very thankful for all the assistant coaches that have worked with me and for me, and great guys, absolutely great guys. Super thankful to my wife. I mean, I think, I don't know if there's a better coach's wife. I mean, if I would have told her a month ago, I want to go 20 years, she'd okay, and she'd be all for it, and she'd be the most enthusiastic supporter in the stands. So she was fantastic, and my family was as well. So just very grateful.
All right, well, I appreciate you. We are going to switch gears. You see Coach Mifsud here. He's chomping at the bit. He's he is the NFL. He's kind of like the, what do we call you here? The fella of the past.
Jimmy the Greek?
Well, no, he's no Jimmy the Greek. Schefter, yeah, he's still alive. Adam Schefter, you're kind of a combination. Adam Schefter, so come on. No, with the fella that did the commercial.
Clayton.
John Clayton. That's who I was thinking of. So we're going to talk NFL. Unless you want to stick around and talk about who's going to win this weekend. We've got two NFC. We got NFC, AFC. We're going to talk about the Buckeyes. Are you a Buckeye fan?
Sure, yeah.
So that we got to enjoy that. That was fun.
That was awesome.
It was Brian Harmon had Ryan Day on the first boat out of Columbus about 4 weeks ago. So we got to talk about that. We're going to see if there's any kind of contract extension coming. But he's got to beat Michigan.
The best way to change a narrative is to win.
There you go. Hey, that's right.
No narrative is permanent.
Coach McGill's heard that before.
Right.
They're only as good as your last one. Coach,
Appreciate it.
good to see you. Thank you. Skylar Mifsud coming on here. Do we have the standings posted?
Yes.
I know. So we've got Jay Clement and we have got George Kennedy are our leaders. So we have this contest. The guy that picks the most correct through the playoffs will win a $25 gift certificate to the Craft Emporium. We got our leaders are at 7-3. Jim Clement took a week off, so he doesn't have much chance. I'd say Damon and Harmon are most realistic. Damon Christen's at 6-4. Harmon can't win the gift card. He is at 6-4. Myself,
Purely
Mifsud,
a spoiler.
Coach Hoyt, all at 5-5. Jeff Stockton, Trell, Birdie, 4-6, and then we got a few people that don't pick every week. Before we get to the NFL picks, let's talk Ohio State. So we did talk that Ryan Day is going to be given another year. He will get to be back as the Ohio State head football coach, but we are not ready to say that it's not time to beat Michigan.
Absolutely not. I mean, that's part of the job. You're the coach at Ohio State, you got to beat Michigan. You got to get to and win Big Ten titles, and you have to contend for a national title. That's the job expectation. It's not my expectation. That's the job expectation. He'd been 0-2, 0-3 for a long time on that. For 4 years, it's been since he's won a Big Ten, since he beat Michigan, obviously since he won a national title. Best way to get that turned around, though, is to win the Natty. And yeah, does it buy him time? Of course, it buys him time. I don't think we're counting down anymore. But we got to get to Indianapolis. We have to beat Michigan. We have to right the ship with the normal things, because we can only win a Natty every 10 years. It's kind of how this is playing out.
Yeah.
So, what are you going to do in between those 10 years? So, obviously, I was rooting hard for him. I think he's a great person. I think he's a great football coach. However, you can't continue to blank on two of the three most important things that you've done. But, man, if you're going to hit one, this is the right one.
Because it's hard to win 4 straight and right the ship. To try to do it next year would be unlikely that we could be in the same boat. So obviously, everybody that would happen to be listening watched all the games. I mean, it was an incredible run. It's certainly an extremely talented roster. It's not the highest paid roster in college football. So I did see some pushback on that narrative late. It felt like Herbie, the turncoat that he is, he still even pushed back on it. And I even heard McAfee pushing back on it. Like, look, this whole mirage that the Buckeyes spent more money, it's just not true.
No.
There's probably 5 to 10 schools that spend in that ballpark. And what Ohio State did is picked up a couple marquee guys from programs you wouldn't expect. Certainly the Alabama guys, the center, and Caleb Downs in particular. But had a ton of guys come back, which was rare. We talked about this with NIL, at least I said it. I thought it was going to get easier for guys to come back, especially if you're a 3rd round pick. We've lost some dudes over the years that made us scratch our heads. I think those days are a little bit over, because if I'm that late 3rd rounder and you give me $2.5 million to come back, it's like, it's a lot easier to do.
They've talked about the narrative or the philosophical change Ohio State took after Quinn Ewers pulled his turncoat role. Oddly enough, we beat him, but we pay him all that money up front Then he turns right around and jets out before classes start, pretty much. And they said, okay, let's not take that position on it. Let's use this money to keep the kids that we want to stay, and that has proved to be absolute a gold mine. That's the way to do it. Get the kids here, get them ingrained, and then incentivize them to stay, build the culture, and then you want to win more games like this.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. I think that it's a lot easier to build a culture that way because you're getting paid for what you've done, not
Yeah.
what you could do.
Yeah.
And especially when you're paying people for what they could do, they might do that somewhere else.
Yeah.
Like Quinn Ewers did. So, it was a lot of fun. At the end of the day, I think, you guys would agree that the college football playoffs are a resounding success. Just so much
Amazing
fun.
to watch.
Yeah, it was awesome.
More football.
Yeah.
And
And
Extended.
good football, and you got to see Tennessee come up north and play in the cold, and you got to just these matchups that you wouldn't normally get to see in the bowl alignment of certain teams, certain conferences go to certain bowls and things like that. Those all out the window now, and it is just awesome.
I will say that I've said this a few times on this podcast that I hope that it extends, and I'd love to see the smaller D1 schools break off at some point and do the same thing. Love to see Bowling Green, the Fresno States, the Marshalls, the App States have their own deal, and where they can play, and we can have that playoff going on
Yes.
too. Like, why do we have to restrict this? Because with the exception of a few of those teams, realistically, they're never going to compete for this title.
If you're not Power 5, I would want out.
Yeah.
I mean, they're the only ones guaranteed to be able to make it. So why would you continue to beat your head against the wall? I'm fully with you. Create their own tournament, do their own thing, and we would root for them in here just the same.
Be a lot of fun.
Absolutely would be.
And they don't have to play, they can play in the weeknights. I mean,
Yeah.
they can fill in that gap. But
Yeah.
Switching to the NFL, so the first game immediately, I could not have been more wrong on the Washington Commanders. I would have lost a lot of money. Like, there was scenarios where someone could have approached me and taken my home that Washington would beat Detroit. Like, I just am stunned that it happened.
Me too.
I can't imagine that Detroit is not in this playoff. And I can't imagine and I like Jaden Daniels, and I like Dan Quinn, and I like Washington. I think I said it on air last week. I just wish they weren't playing the Lions. And, they thoroughly dominated the Lions. I mean, it wasn't even really debatable. And so, Mifsud, I know you're going to have some opinions. They roll back into NFC title game, and they're back to being 6.5-point dogs at the Philadelphia Eagles.
Well, what I was going to say about the Lions game is Dan Quinn did Dan Campbell but better. I mean, he got in the short fourth down situations, and they converted on every single one. The Lions defense it was bad.
Beat up.
It was bad all year because of injuries. They couldn't stop him, and they ran into a Jared Goff game that, he had 4 turnovers.
Some call it a vintage Jared Goff game. Not me. Others, I've heard other people say it.
Yeah, he hadn't really shown that this year. But yeah, agreed. So yeah, flipping to the Eagles game. The Eagles are not into the rebuild yet, like some thought.
We'll see.
We'll see. They got one more week before the rebuild. Jones, prepare yourself. I'm taking the Eagles to cover. What they did last week was impressive, but once again, Lions were really beat up on defense, and the Eagles' defense is really good at times, and I think they'll be able to take away the Jaden Daniels running ability more than the Lions are able to. And I know you don't believe in the Eagles' offense, but I think having Saquon Barkley on the field, it's hard to stop him and Hurts when they get going, running the ball so well together. And let's not forget, he's a rookie quarterback going on the road into Philly. They haven't won it. They haven't covered a single spread, rookie quarterbacks in the championship games, dating back to like 2003 or something like that.
Kind of the argument I made last week, though. Rookie quarterback on the road against a really good team, and
I'm with you.
And it backfired.
But now it's a good defense.
Yeah, that's true. I really struggle with it. I don't want to take the Eagles, but it's also hard for me to see the Commanders playing in the Super Bowl. It just doesn't. What I said last week is I thought Jaden Daniels would hit the wall a little bit.
Commanders have beat them this year, 31-29. Eagles blew them out the other time.
Yeah, I'm going to stick with my guns and go Commanders. I'll take the 6.5. I'd probably like to tease it up above a touchdown. I still think there's a chance that the Eagles could lay an egg. I keep feeling like there's this Eagles meltdown coming. I think some of the things that they've done this season feel like that's how it ends.
The book.
Like, what's that?
The book.
What do you mean?
A.J. Brown's book. You don't.
Well, the
you don't
book
like
rattled
that.
me. No, it did.
Did you see it was the number one selling book on Amazon?
That's brilliant, actually. Yeah, I did see that. That's brilliant. Yeah, I just feel like sometimes I always try to like view what the end looks like, and I vision Nick Sirianni sitting in a press conference saying really dumb things and, getting like vilified all offseason for it. But now he's already in the NFC title game. So, I mean, obviously them losing now is not that egregious. So I will go Washington 6.5. You're going Eagles laying the points.
Commanders. And really, part of it's just I'm a game back and trying to catch something there. But what he said, Dan Quinn was a little bit better version of Dan Campbell last week, and he's got something Sirianni doesn't, and that's he's got that dog in him. And I don't know, there's something about what he's doing right now that's really impressive.
The late game, I assume, is the Bills and Chiefs then. So we're talking what how do they do that? Like 3 and 6:30, something like that. So the 6:30 game is Bills at Chiefs, which this felt inevitable to me all season. How many times does this game happen now? It feels like this
A
is
lot.
Several, right?
And once this season.
And it's always at Arrowhead generally. Chiefs are 1.5-point favorites. I'll just go ahead and lead saying that I've been picking the Bills to win. I flipped on air when you were talking about the Ravens. I let you do it to me again. You did the whole whatever it is you do.
And if Lamar didn't have that first half, they win.
Well,
3
you know what they say
turnovers.
about
He had
that.
a great second half.
The Bills have been my pick to win the Super Bowl for a long time, and I flipped it, so I'm going to get back on the bandwagon. I feel like the Chiefs, they're not going to win 3 Super Bowls in a row. It's as simple as that for me. And they've been playing people close, and it feels like this is Josh Allen, and the end. That's what we're talking about. It's finally his time. He went into Arrowhead, and I don't think the Bills are necessarily that great, but I think Josh Allen is. So I'll take the Bills.
Yeah, I'm rolling with Buffalo. We give the same script we give every week. Nobody circles the wagons like the Buffalo Bills. They're the Fighting Bazlewskis.
Yes, that family. I've thought about them a lot.
We leave for vacation in just a few days with the Bazlewskis. Can't wait to see them. And I hope we really party at heart because that last day we're there is Super Bowl Sunday. So,
Oh, wow.
so yeah, I hope we really get it going.
Have they started listening to the podcast yet?
Well, they're Canadian, so it's a whole
We don't
different
know.
thing.
We don't air in
We
Canada.
don't air in Canada. It's a whole thing with licensing and stuff. So
It's a border thing.
Yeah.
We try not to get political here.
right. But no, I'm with you. This Chiefs doesn't feel like a team. This isn't the team that wins 3 straight.
Yeah.
This might have been the team that won the first one.
Right.
But this isn't the team that wins the third one, and they're just not playing clean enough. And I'm taking Buffalo.
I was all over the Ravens. I really thought that it was their year. I have a Bills-Eagles futures bet, both to make the Super Bowl. So I'm sitting on that I placed 5 weeks ago. So that'd be nice, but I don't think it's going to win. I can't stand the Chiefs. I can't.
Now, why can't you stand them?
I can't stand how much they win.
Well, that's fair.
Yeah, I like Patrick
Maybe
Mahomes. I
bored.
like.
When you say
I'm
you're
bored
just
of them.
bored of
Yes,
them.
I'm bored of them.
Yeah,
That's fair.
I can listen to that.
I'm sick of seeing Travis Kelce not do anything throughout the season, and then the playoffs start and he goes for over 100 yards of offense.
He's old. That's what old people do.
Yeah, it's impressive. I'm taking the Chiefs because it doesn't make sense why they're in this situation.
We're the 2-time Super Bowl champions.
Agreed. But when you look at the regular season, how many close games they won, and how they are able to just pull everything out of the hat,
Feels like they're playing
it just,
fire.
yeah. I can't.
But
bet
you're taking
against,
the Chiefs.
I am. I can't bet against Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah.
I'm sick of it. I am. I'm sick of it.
You've really confused me with a lot of your phrases.
Well, yeah, I think it's a good weekend. I don't love the Commanders Eagles matchup. It's not like the Bills Chiefs. The only thing I guess I have against it is it's a little tired.
You're bored of it.
Yeah,
But it's a marquee match.
it's a marquee matchup. It is a little tired.
Would you have been more excited about a Ravens Chiefs matchup?
No,
Okay.
I'd probably be more excited about Ravens Bills, even though we just saw that. I think the Bengals against the Bills would have been really cool. I know they're not even in the playoffs, but and the other side, I would have liked to see Detroit.
Yeah.
I really didn't want to see the Eagles. I'm a little tired of the Eagles too.
Me too.
But in fairness, outside of Detroit, I don't know who else I really wanted to see in the NFC. So
The Bucks.
not particularly. No, I don't see Baker Mayfield struggle. No. So it's an exciting weekend. I don't think it's quite as exciting. We're coming off last weekend's tough to match that, where you've got all those games. Then you got Monday, you get the national championship. So we are on the downslide here with football. We're going to have 2 games, and then we're going to have 1, and that's it. And we're going to go through. We're going to be sitting here trying to talk about these NBA games where the Bucks are beating the Heat by 4 at home. That's not as exciting, but we got March Madness on the horizon. It's still not. The actual event is a lot of fun. Now the lead up of February, random Indiana playing at Purdue is still not that exciting, but we'll get by. Hopefully have some guests on. I've reached out to a few different people. Got a guy that graduated from Bellefonte named Doug Coate. People that are from Bellefonte a long time know who Doug Coate is. He's I believe 78 or 79 grad. Was head coach at Findlay, head coach at St. Francis, and just a dude. And he committed to coming on. We're going to try to figure that out down the road. But I want to try to bring on people, as we move forward, maybe just that have a story to tell. I don't know that we'll necessarily try to bring on coaches from each team. We'll do a little bit of that where it's pertinent, but I'm more interested in people that have a good story to tell. I'd like to get, if anybody knows the number of Craig Morris, I was trying to creep on him. He does, Craig Morris is the 73 Riverside grad that played for Bobby Knight. He lives in South Carolina, it appears. I don't have the ability to communicate with him on Facebook because the Facebook rules don't allow me to. Like, I can't reach out to people. Because I'm a business, yeah. So I would like to, and maybe Coach Hoyt has talked about, if we went that route, we may have to do like a video thing, but I'm kind of interested in that. We did name our athletes of the week. I don't really talk about that on here. Brody Reisinger of Indian Lake was our male athlete of the week. Reisinger's just a stud. I mean, this dude's a stud. He is a sophomore that's scoring 20 points a game, bringing down 10, 11 rebounds, and is an all-league football player and only a sophomore. I mean, he's going to be a star. And big dude.
He doesn't look like a sophomore.
No, he's a grown man. And then, the female was Gracie Hood. I don't know that, because I certainly haven't paid attention until recently. This bowling scene in this area is strong. And this girl's good. I mean, she is a good bowler. She's the best bowler in the area for the ladies, and I do get impressed by the bowling scene, and I think it is cool. I'm not a bowler, but it's cool that we have a local place and that's thriving, and I like giving them a little bit of publicity when we can. So, I think that's a wrap. We did a lot longer than we said. That's 2 straight weeks of these long form conversations. Maybe try to shorten it up next week. Hopefully everybody got their picks in. We will, so we'll be sitting here next week. We'll be on an off week in the NFL. We'll have Super Bowl kind of talk, but we'll still be a week out. So maybe a little shorter show, but we'll be in touch. Thanks to certainly Dan McGill, head football coach, West Liberty-Salem. Just finished up a great career for the Tigers. A lot of wins, great dude. Just a great ambassador for West Liberty-Salem and for local high school football. Certainly thanks to Paul Newland, top of Ohio Radon. Continue to appreciate everything they've done for us. Thanks to Skylar Mifsud and Brian Harmon and Hoyt Buckingham on control. See you next Thursday. I needed it. went bad.
We went.
I was jonesing. Harmon, can I get a double?
Absolutely.
Margarita and a Blue Moon?
You got it. Margarita.
Jesus.